class, welcome. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about being a learner or a warrior. It's a great question to ask yourself. Are you a learner or are you a warrior? As a critical thinker, you want to make sure you can identify which one you are when it comes to debatable issues. This is not in general. Critical thinking is pretty much centered on debatable issues. Things where you and someone else may disagree. Certainly politics, pretty much any decision made by our political leaders. Things like issues on abortion, issues on religion, issues on lifestyle choices, sexual orientation choices, the differences on opinions as far as money or the political or monetary systems that we use, on and on and on. Any of these things are debatable issues, and that's what we need to think about when we're thinking about our critical thinking. For instance, you could talk about the issue of the minimum wage debate. Some people believe that minimum wage should be raised a lot. Some people feel that minimum wage should not be raised. And when you think about that, I want you to think to yourself, am I a learner or a warrior when it comes to that? So you have to be ready to become very humble, guys. Intellectual humility is paramount. It's most important here. You have to be ready to say, oh, I don't think critically about that. It's going to get a little uncomfortable in your head, I'm telling you. So you want to think, am I a learner or am I a warrior? So you're asking now, well, what's the difference? Oops, let me backspace it. So, are you a warrior? If you're a warrior, you have a stance and you stick to it. For instance, on the minimum wage debate, you may say, absolutely, minimum wage should not be raised, or absolutely, it should be raised. Or this could be on anything, guys. This could be on the health care issue, with the new Affordable Care Act that a lot of people call Obamacare, that sort of thing. It could be on anything, the death penalty, so on and so forth. So they have a stance and they stick to it. They are not going to budge. They work hard to prove that they are right. And they work hard to prove that their opposition, the other side, is wrong. They may come to the table with research, facts, and data. All of that, though, is to back up the fact that they are right or the other side is wrong. They feel the need to prove him or herself. They want to prove to everybody why they're right. They feel that others just don't have the right information. If they can give them the right information and the people would listen to them, then everyone would believe the way they do. They may feel that others just really aren't smart enough. They may feel smarter than the other people, and actually may result into name calling and things like that to make themselves feel better. People may call people, say a tree hugger as opposed to an environmentalist, or a capitalist pig as opposed to a business owner. Either way, though, that's kind of putting somebody down to make themselves seem more right. Most likely, they feel he or she is thinking critically, although probably they're not. Notice the picture of the warrior. By the way, girls, I tried to find, or women, I tried to find a woman warrior, but they're all in scantily clad bikinis, so I had to go with the male. But warriors come to the table like this. They are ready to fight for their side, for their stance. They are certain they are right, and they're going to fight you for it. So, learners, on the other hand, a learner has a stance, but they hold it very loosely. So let's say I have a stance on the death penalty, and I feel like, yes, I think the death penalty, it should continue. I'm going to hold that stance very, very loosely. I'm going to say, you know what, that is how I feel based on the research I have done. However, I understand that there's always more to know. I'll tell you one thing that was very interesting that I found when I was researching the death penalty is that most victims' families said that the death of the person who killed their family member, most of them, not all of them, but I don't want to say most, I'm going to say a majority. I'd say like 70-75% of them said that the death of the person that killed their family member did not bring them any peace. As a matter of fact, it had the opposite effect. They felt worse after that person was killed. That was something that shocked me, and that was something more to know, because I was willing to research both sides. You've got to be willing to research both sides. Now, whoops, let me back it up. The warriors will say, oh, I researched both sides. I've researched this extensively. Well, often that means that they research the other side so that they could prove the other side wrong. That's normally how people approach things. But a learner works to prove him or herself wrong. In other words, if I say, I think the death penalty is spot on, we need to keep it, my research should center more on trying to prove my stance wrong. I need to go out there and look for really good information that negates what I'm saying, that would show me why I could be wrong about the death penalty. That's how a learner thinks. And if you haven't noticed, a learner is what we're trying to be. That's a true critical thinker. A learner is not afraid to be wrong. And I'll tell you, they're not afraid to be wrong because they don't have an overly emotional investment in their stance. They're not so attached to their stance. So they're like, well, I could be wrong here. I want to learn more. And if people come to them and challenge their stance, so someone comes to me and says, Sarah, you are wrong about the whole death penalty issue. And I will say, okay, talk to me. Why? I want to know why. Not in a way of talk to me because what you're going to tell me, I'm going to refute, one after the other. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. I'm going to listen to them. That doesn't mean I have to accept everything they say, but I do want to listen to them. A learner is always asking questions to learn more, especially about the opposing side. Never stop questioning. Even question your own side. Say, okay, where did this information come from? Let me go see if this is biased in any way. Let me make sure it's credible. Let me make sure it's reliable. Let me read the research and see if they had appropriate methods in collecting this information, so on and so forth. They do not label people in order to make themselves feel smarter or more right than the opposition. Just like I said, a warrior may do that. They may say, oh, someone was talking about a Southern guy, and he said that people said he must be stupid because he was very conservative and very Southern and spoke with an accent. That's definitely not a learner stance. It's definitely a warrior stance, and actually a pretty poor stance, because when you label people like that, it's because you probably don't have a very good argument, and that's the only way to refute that person, is to kind of make fun of them in a way. We see that done a lot in politics and that sort of thing on both sides, of course. So we want to make sure critical thinkers or learners, they don't label people in order to make themselves feel smarter or better. Learners are very eager to learn more, even if it proves them wrong. Learners are always out there looking for more information. When they have a spare moment and they've thought a lot about an issue, or they're watching TV and they hear an issue come up, they hop on their computer and start researching. And again, they don't have an emotional investment in it because they aren't holding too tightly to it. Guys, most importantly though, I want you to keep an open mind, be a learner, but not to the point that your brain falls out, right? I love that. Keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. By that I mean, you can't accept everything that you hear. We'll talk more in week 3 about credible and reliable sources. So just because someone says something to you doesn't mean it's true. I'll give you a great example. Facebook this past week, a lot of people were passing around a map. I wish I had it on the picture of it on here. It was a map of what supposedly used to be the areas that Native Americans had of North America, and it was this whole map covered with them, and people were passing it on and talking about how, oh yeah, look, and oh, now I see how things are named the way they are where I live, and so on and so forth. But sadly, they let their brains fall out because they didn't read the map closely. The map wasn't an actual map of where these tribes were, because there were only like 30 or so tribes on there, and apparently there were over 100 tribes, hundreds of tribes in in North America at that time. The map was only about what someone perceived what North America would look like had it never been settled by Europeans. So they were saying this is how they think it would look. So in other words, they actually, even in their thought of how they thought it would look, they got rid of a bunch of tribes. But people were passing it around like it was fact. So please be careful where you get your information. Don't let your brains fall out. Question that information. But keep in mind, we want to be learners, guys. We want to just be ready to question, be ready to question ourselves, be ready to work hard to prove ourselves wrong. And we do that because if we don't try that, we're going to be too biased about our own stance. All right, guys? So that's the difference between a warrior and a learner. I will tell you, almost everybody, if they are talking about a stance that they care about, they become a warrior. If you don't have an opinion on it, of course you're a learner. If someone's going to talk to me about veganism, I think I've used this example before, but if someone talks to me about becoming a vegan, I don't really have a stance on it. So I'm willing to learn. It's very easy. But if you talk to me about something, say gun control or the death penalty or the minimum wage debate, although I have to say on the minimum wage debate, I really don't have much of a stance. In the death penalty, it's not that I don't have a stance, it's that I can't pick a stance on either of those because I've researched it a lot, because students researched a lot in this class. But I'll say on something like gun control, I have a pretty solid stance on that. So if I'm not careful, I can very much be a warrior. So I need to be prepared to not stick to my stance. I need to be prepared to not try to prove myself right, but to prove myself wrong. I need to be ready to listen to the opposition, not try to point out where they're wrong, but really, really listen. Now, that doesn't mean I listen to incorrect information, but I listen with more of an open mind than I normally would have. Okay, guys, I hope that helps, and I appreciate you watching this. Thanks so much, and feel free to ask any questions or let me know if you have any concerns.